So glad that you came in this morning from San Francisco to join us. And as you said, we'll now bring in 3 AI founders to broaden up the conversation, coming from a whole set of different verticals. And to host this conversation, I have my colleague coming in from the other part of the world, coming in from Singapore, Paul Kawiniheat. Paul, as you may know, heads lead professor on the legendary Your First 100 Days simulation, role play, but actually here is also because he pioneered the INSEAD Startup Bootcamp. Paul, over to you and the rest of the panelists.
Thank you very much. So if I could be joined by everybody on stage, that'd be great. You can come on now. So thank you very much for the presentation. One thing I just want to say while I have a chance as we're setting up, I've had a great day, and I think that Peter and Pascal and team have done a fantastic job. And I love the gender balance in the presenters and the panelists. So well done to the INSEAD team. So thank you for the presentation. First thing from the other founders, before you introduce yourself, everyone else will have a chance to ask questions of Malika in just a second. Do you have any burning questions based on her presentation that you'd like to ask her on behalf of the audience? Is that on?
Is it working?
Yeah, it's on.
It does. Okay. Thanks, Malika. Hi. Yeah, one question. So you introduced an accelerator. I wasn't sure if it was a marketplace or something else, but do you know what are the kind of 3 key factors for an accelerator if you're positioned as a startup?
As in what you're looking for as value add from a startup perspective?
From an accelerator, yes.
Yeah, just to clarify, so we run these 3 to 6 month accelerators all over the world. We're a little bit different, and actually the reason why we called Studio is we wanted to disassociate from the way that accelerators, I think, have become to be seen by the founder community globally. We don't take equity, we don't invest, which is a little bit different to traditional accelerators. To the second part of your question of what do founders look for in an accelerator, what we do, I can speak to that, is we make sure to connect brilliant founders together. And this is from, I think a lot of the people on the Launchpad team are ex-founders, and I think Paul has a lot of thoughts about this too. It's all about the people. So making sure that we bring an amazing class of founders together. The second aspect is we bring a lot of mentors who have very different skills. So actually, Paul is a mentor in our program. People who have experience both on the technical side, but all the way through, I mentioned product, growth, people. And the third thing I think that founders are looking for in accelerators, at least in the way that we see it, is education and training. In the way, the world is moving so fast. I'm having trouble keeping up even with what's going on in the machine learning space. I've sort of given up to a certain extent on blockchain and quantum. There are these other sort of rockets that are flying in other directions. And the asks that we get from our founders at least is, can you make sure that we are up to date with everything that matters in the machine learning space? And so that's something that we care a lot about bringing.
All right, so thank you both. Maybe now the 3 newcomers to the panel, if you could just give us a 1-minute introduction of who you are, your company, and how you use AI and ML. How about we start over there?
Sure.
It's on.
Okay, sure. So I'm Yann. I'm the co-founder and CEO of CardioLogs. We develop medical-grade artificial intelligence for clinical decision support in cardiology. With the first application for ECG analysis. So the ECG is the examination that measures the electrical activity of the heart. It's a very quick and easy to record examination, but that can be challenging for physicians who are not experts and labor-intensive, time-consuming for experts. So we have built a cloud-based platform available as a service powered by a medical-grade artificial intelligence based on deep learning technology, trained on a proprietary data set of more than 600,000 cases, annotated by experts and also data from outcomes. Actually, we've been the very first company in the world to receive regulatory approval by any authority for medical-grade AI, because we received the CE mark in Europe in August 2016. Product has been cleared by the FDA in June 2017. Today, in terms of AI capacity in Europe, our clearance enables us to detect more than 100 different cardiac abnormalities on the EKG data, while we have FDA clearance for 15 abnormalities, basically all the clinically relevant arrhythmias, including atrial fibrillation, actually, which is the most common arrhythmia in the world. About atrial fibrillation, and I'll be done with that, we have actually published proof of performances of our technology, where we have showed that compared to the traditional algorithms, we divide by 20 the false positives without compromising on the sensitivity, which is a big number. So yeah, company has been founded 4 years ago. We raised more than $10 million in funding, and we're now 25 people. We launched US operations a few months ago, and hiring.
Thank you. Brief introduction.
Hello everyone, I'm Célia. I'm representing Heuritech. Heuritech was founded by PhD students 5 years ago, and they developed a visual recognition technology tailored for fashion. It means that in any given images, we're able to recognize more than 100 of specific attributes like a white jean. And we apply this technology to social media every day, analyzing 2 million of images. For specific luxury clients and also brands, it helps them to monitor their products and also trends coming up in the market. And we are 30 people by now.
Very good.
Hello. Hey.
Yep.
Yes.
Use yours.
Okay. Thanks. Hello.
Oh. Go ahead.
No, it's good. Okay, good. All right. My name is François. I'm very glad to be here today. I was in MBA 06, July, so great for me also to see Theos again, statistical professor at the time. Now I am Chief Marketing, Sales and Marketing Officer at DreamQuark, and DreamQuark is a deep learning technology company creating a platform software for bank and insurances. We are really into hard technology. We have a lot of PhDs, and we have cracked the problem of explainability of deep learning. So when you ask about interpretability, it's the heart of what we are delivering. We have patented that, and it's very important for regulated industries, like you were saying, like bank and insurances. So we have very nice customers, like BNP Paribas, actually in Station F as well, with whom we did an acceleration program 1 year ago, and now we are going in production. We are also 30 people based in Paris, and yes, a lot of market recognition, FinTech of the Year, a lot of traction, very keen to launch new offices also abroad in the UK, and now we are today doing the Impact USA program, so hence my scarf. Not a credit to Mr. Trump, but just a link to Nicolas, who's in the US at the moment.
All right, thank you all very much for the introductions. The first question, so artificial intelligence, machine learning is very buzzy. You know, you hear people talk about it, you read about it in presentations to investors and others. You know, it's thrown around very loosely, trying to get people excited. In your experience in your companies, from Google to the startups, are you finding that artificial intelligence, machine learning is living up to the hype? Is it really what everyone thinks it is? Or is it falling short?
I would say a short answer is obviously not. A longer answer is, I mean, in healthcare in particular, I think there are many trends happening at the same time, which makes it a bit confusing for, I would say, external people to analyze what's going on with AI. I mean, if you look at AI, I would say you have, two differentiators. I mean, when looking at an AI company, what data do they use? I mean, regardless of the different use cases and industry, by the way, what data set do they leverage, and I would say what type of algorithm do they use? I mean, in healthcare, for example, there is a huge digitization trend of healthcare happening right now. So I mean, we see companies that, I mean, they develop great product. I mean, they're not technically doing like deep learning or cutting edge AI. They use algorithms that have been on the market, like super vector machines, linear regression, for like decades. I mean, does that mean that they do not do AI? I don't know. I think the point is they're developing a product that is good enough, that is serving customers, regardless of the technology. So I would say, to me, personally, we do deep learning. I mean, we have like a strong research capacities, and we're very serious about, I mean, when we mean AI, we mean cutting edge models. But I would not discard the other companies that, I mean, are not cutting edge into algorithm, because at the end of the day, I mean, they leverage data to solve problems, and I think we should encourage it. So.
All right. And your experience, would you?
Well, I think it really depends on the topics that you're tackling. In computer vision, especially the latest development in the recent years have allow us to achieve similar precision degree than the human. So when it comes to Heuritech, for example, in 90% of the case, the models can recognize the products that we are trying to recognize in the image. So I think in this particular topic, I'd say that yes, the AI is living up to it. Yes.
All right, so we have a no vote and a yes vote. And a?
Okay, no surprise for me. Machine learning, AI, we are just at the beginning. We believe that it's not just about algorithm and models. Okay, they are stunning. You can have huge performances, but at the end of the day, we believe that our vision is to deploy deep learning massively into bank and insurances. And to do that, we have 4 pillars. One is the transparency. I already talked about it. Second is the ease of use. You need to have not just people going to Cloudera. I mean, it's very nice, Cloudera, but I strongly encourage you not to try to do deep learning algorithm on yourself at the moment. It's very difficult. There are hyperparameters and all the stuff. You need to be very good at mathematics. And if you don't see in 3D, don't try to see in XGs, So that's one thing. So it needs to be easy and used by business users, right? Not by scientists, right? Not everybody is going to become a scientist, right? But you have a lot of experts in companies who can, if they have a platform, do models themselves, and they have the business knowledge. So you need to leverage that. Third is the ease of deployment. Today, if you have a toy deep learning model, but it never go into production, it's useless, right? So you need to think about the production very early, how you can put that into production with API, etc. And we do generate that automatically. And last, and the most important, is value. Focus on value, or always try to focus on use case that deliver value to your end customer, to your company, etc. And this is how you make it happen really, big.
So in all of that, then artificial intelligence, machine learning in time will live up to its potential. Right now?
No, okay, don't make me wrong, okay? Customers are communicating on the value we deliver with them, and so they believe it. So for me, it's true as a sales manager,
Okay, so it is.
That's the truth, right? Because the customer says it, right?
All right.
But I think there are also early adopters, and they see, and they are putting 3 billion euro on their transformation because they see they need to transform themselves. They cannot stay like they are today, right? So it's good to like statistics, like I heard this morning, but now there is disruption, and we need to transform that, right?
Okay, so for Google,
yeah,
it's living up to it, it's not?
I mean, it definitely is. So 2 main thoughts. I think some amazing points. Every single product at Google is now powered in some way by machine learning. I think we also vastly underestimate how many tools you are using every day, we are using every day, that are actually leveraging machine learning in some way. The second thing I want to bring up, and it's a little bit, sort of departs a bit from what we're talking about, is I think it's actually becoming increasingly dangerous to talk about hype when it comes to AI. Because there are really important conversations for us to have that sort of you have to accept that AI is as powerful as we think it is. And the 3 main things I'm thinking about are, we've talked about security, transparency, data privacy. I think the second is unemployment. Many parts of people's jobs are getting automated right now as we speak. Lawyers, consultants, doctors. I think a lot of political problems that we're seeing in the world right now are actually as a result of people having lost their jobs. So I think it's important to talk about that. And third is, so unemployment, transparency, and then there's, the sort of bigger ethical questions, right? We talked about the need to have more soft skills that are being taught. I like to not think about, just because I think it's a waste of time from the important conversations we need to have about this evil AI concept. It's like, I feel like a lot of the popular discussions around AI are about either hype or evil AI is taking over the world. And it bothers me because I think that there are more important discussions to be had. So I think it's living up to it, and it's actually surpassing what we think that AI could do, and we need.
So of the things that you believe that should be discussed, which of those topics would be the most relevant questions for this panel? The most relevant question.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, I think one thing that I'm starting to think a lot about, I mentioned earlier, was how to start doing machine learning in different ways. And so I don't know how familiar you guys are with the concept of federated learning, so moving machine learning onto a decentralized network. And what that allows you to do is to not have data centralized all in one place. I mean, how many hacks have we had on data sets in just the last month alone? And so I think maybe focusing a bit on the data security, transparency aspect, because machine learning is inherently frustrating because you only get a model to be precise if you centralize data, if you have access to a lot of data, right? Like a model will only be 99.9% accurate if you fed millions, if not billions, of data points at it. So what are new ways that we can think about privacy, security, maybe in your different industries, because you come from such different different spaces? Right. How are you thinking about data security and transparency in the age of AI?
Fair question.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think not all companies have millions of data points like you are mentioning, and Google is a special one for this one, right? My customers sometimes have 10,000 customers, and 3 years of historical data, right? So we've put a lot of effort into research to make the algorithm work for them, right? And it works. And sometimes it's a bit uncertain, and there is a bit of not gambling, but trial and error approach into machine learning, and someone needs to know that before engaging into machine learning, because it's not like a certain outcome that goes out of it, right? Then the point about the security, transparency, all that. Security is very important, actually, when you go in production, especially, because I saw your graph, 20% time for implementation at the end. I think it's short when you are really working with big B2Bs, right? In my case, we took something like 1 year from the proof of value to the implementation in that large bank. And because they are doing a lot of things, like they want to test in the field, they want to test that they can really use the solution, and they want also us to interface with the IT, and legacy ITs are a nightmare, right? And one of the points there is the security, how you obfuscate the data, what data you really need, and also what some people can visualize or not visualize, so you need to play also with the governance of the data, etc. We have this marvelous GDPR in France and Europe here, and that's another parameters. It shouldn't be an excuse not to do something, and one other thing that I can share is that a lot of sensitive data is not useful for machine learning, so that's a good news, because actually we can learn a lot from non-sensitive data, right? So, but yes, just takeaways, millions of data points is maybe not always useful, and right. There are approaches.
So for Heuritech, the case is a bit different because we need to, we have an integrated platform with using AI, so we don't actually integrate it into our client's company. So we need to have high standards for ourselves. When it comes to the image that we need to have for trainings, nowadays we need to have 50 images, for example, to train a pair of Nike. And tomorrow we would need to be close to 1 images to train our model, because that's very costly for us, of course. And also another question, of course, is that we use this technology for social media, and there is the question of privacy, especially when it comes to GDPR in Europe. But what we do is, so we only take public data, of course, and we have a standard that's called depersonalization that you use at Google as well, that we have a 2-layer of anonymized data for people that we can't recognize them. So
security?
So in healthcare it matters a lot.
Yeah.
Obviously, the very first principle, of medicine is do no harm. So patient safety is like the core of everything we do. At the same time, I would say that when we went through the regulatory barrier, we had less questions about the AI or the deep neural network in itself than of cybersecurity procedures. Because that's where industry is at the moment. I mean, when you get into the medical industry, medical device industry, you have discussion with the FDA or your notified body in Europe. I mean, they're not to the point of like asking interpretability. I mean, we never had this question by any regulators in years. But we had tons of questions about cybersecurity procedures, the identification of the data, patient safety. Because at the end of the day, well, I would say that's what the market needs and what's the core market preoccupation right now. Obviously, we can anticipate that in a few years from now, once I would say the FDA and the regulators will be educated about cybersecurity, they might want to move on to interpretability in the future. But today, I mean, to be honest, we never had the questions. Also because in healthcare, I'm sorry, but I mean, there are plenty of drugs that are used million times per day, where actually at the end of the day, we don't really know how it works. I mean, if you take the case of anticoagulation therapy for atrial fibrillation, right? Atrial fibrillation causes 30% of strokes. The model that how we think the clot, I mean, atrial fibrillation creates the stroke, is that given that the blood stagnates in the atrium, it gets aggregated into clots and is sent into the brain and causes a stroke, right? That's the model we have right now. So that's the reason why, under certain conditions, when we diagnose a patient with atrial fibrillation as a prevention, we put the patient under anticoagulation. The study that is supposed to prove the causality mechanism has not been published yet. We don't know. So, but we know we have studies that show that if we put patient under anticoagulation with AFib, we increase survival rates. So, well, and that also in some cases to be proven. So what I mean by that is that at the end of the day, what matters is to help patients. So, I mean, in this paradigm, I mean, interpretability, causability, I mean, it's nice, but I mean, if you have a technology that saves patients, I mean, that's first a good point.
Very good. Now, before I ask my next question, is there a question from the audience for anyone on the panel? Yes.
Sure. So, I mean, in the first time, I mean, we have like more than 600,000 in the data set right now. When we started, we were like all the other like companies that were trying to tackle EKG analysis, leveraging public data set, right? Where there was basically only 1,000, I mean, no more than 10,000 cases. So we tried, so back in 2014, we tried, I would say, 3 different strategies. We tried to set up our own telemedicine system so we could basically service up and then automate us as, I mean, in the future. Well, we found that in France, setting up a telemedicine business is pretty much as much regulated as medtech, so we abandoned it. We tried to purchase data set from telemedicine companies abroad. Obviously, we did not have enough cash because, I mean, it was even before pre-seed and I was still a student, so well. Not so much money in the bank. And what worked really well, and actually what, I mean, then DeepMind made popular is clinical research partnerships. Actually, that's the gold standard to get data. So when we did this very first partnership with this hospital in the US, I remember the principal investigator, he was coming in Paris, and I said, well, you know, I have like 1,000 EKG in the database. He said, well, I think in my hospital I have 10,000. And I was like, okay, fantastic. So we go through the RB approval. And then he gives me a call and says, hey, we check with the IT guys. Actually, we have 100,000 EKGs. So that's how we get the first 100,000. About just data privacy and get patient data, well, what we do does not conflict with patient privacy. Because at the end of the day, we train a model to analyze a patient and a disorder. So we don't need a granularity of information that conflicts with patient data. It's not like DNA. I mean, when you work on DNA data, well, by design, you can identify the patient with the raw data that you have. In the EKG space, we can also have other metadata, such as the age, gender, results from outcomes, without infringing patient de-identification.
Right. Is there one more question? Yeah.
Yeah, I got a question on term of what can you manage to do with AI on the software on code programming?
Is this for Google?
Yeah.
So I'm always careful with what's public, what's private information, but I can talk about it more in a theoretical standpoint as of right now. Have you coded before?
Yeah. Yes.
And so you know how code is kept and saved, and mistakes in the code are very well documented, and the solutions to the mistaken code are also documented. If you think about how you train a machine learning model, it's on good instances, bad instances. If there were bad instances, what is the one that's fixed it? Google probably has one of the largest repositories of code that has been edited over the last 20 years. Amazon has a similar database, so does every other tech company. Just given how machine learning works, and then how code lives as a form of communication, I think it's just a matter of time. And I think it's actually a very exciting thing, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but at MIT right now they're starting to teach code without coding. It's purely image-based, and basically movement of shapes and images to basically have code be generated on the back end. I think it's just going to look like web development. We used to have to write the entire back end and front end, and now we just drag and drop, and the code gets written in the background. I think it's just going to be one level further. I can't say in terms of specific timeline, but you're starting to see it. How many of you are familiar with AutoML? It's a new tool that Google's developed. It helps you automate DevOps, which is an extremely tedious part of having a model go into production. So yeah, I think it's already starting to happen, and full automation is just really a matter of I think, the next few years.
All right, and that we're out of time, can you give your 30-second advice to those in the audience about deploying AI and ML in their companies or startups? 30 seconds.
Yes. Hello. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very simple. If you want to go into transforming your company, you need a very strong sponsor, somebody, who put finance on the table, but also who there all the way long from day one to the next year and the year after, because it's a journey and it's a transformation journey. And I've seen a lot of companies where they want to do something, they want to do Twitter with us, etc., but they don't have the stamina to go up to the end. And it's the same for then the execution part, a very strong project manager. That's my two-second advice.
Don't think that AI is a box to tick for a company, because rather start with the use cases and the pain point that the core of your company is having right now, and maybe AI is the answer, maybe AI is not.
30 seconds.
I think first is don't solve the wrong problem. We did it many times. Second, it's not, I would say, the most compelling problem that you solve that will bring, actually, in healthcare, the most valuable business.
Yeah, and then something maybe quite specific, actually, I alluded to it earlier, is as you implement AI in your company, try to train the people who are inside your company. And there's a very specific reason. They understand the problem that you're trying to solve. So even if they're just a business person, a salesperson, having them go through the training to understand what's possible with machine learning is going to end up with much better results for you. The number of times I've seen companies, large and small, hire outside talent who are just machine learning experts and not see things move forward is, just astonishing. And so also in the spirit of making sure that people get retrained and don't lose their jobs, invest in the people who've been investing in your company for many years. It works, and I think it's really the right thing to do.
And then mine is surround yourself with the right team. The right team will make gold out of rubbish, and the wrong team will make rubbish out of gold.
All right. Tony, Yann, François, Malika, and Paul, thank you very much.